you can be extremely productive and have very little stress in your life. A lot of people have done that to their surprise when they thought they would probably have less productivity, but actually they learn how to get rid of their stress. Boom, it's like an explosion of productivity, much more than they ever imagined.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleacademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou, and boy, do we have an exciting guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is a highly credentialed man, a true thought leader. He is a man who has been a medical doctor, and he's a thought leader in helping people with anger elimination, stress minimization, and making you feel like a happy, fabulous human being. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Mort Orman. Welcome, Mort.
Well, thank you, Nikki. I think that's the best introduction I've ever had.
Good. Glad to hear it. So, Mort, we've been introduced by a mutual friend, my good buddy, Raymond Aaron. They call Raymond Canada's coach because he's coached more Canadians to success than anybody else. He's a fabulous human being. And he told me with an excited text, Nikki, I just interviewed the greatest guy. You got to have him on your show. His name's Dr. Mort Orman. Trust me. And I'm like, whenever Raymond says, trust me, I'm like, I know to trust him. So I reached out to you, and here you are. And I'm excited for this conversation today. But before we dig into it, the people on the show need to get to know you so they can open their hearts to you and really take in what you have to say. So tell us your backstory. How'd you get to be the great Dr. Mort Orman?
Well, I got to this place like most people, as I had a lot of anger, I had a lot of stress. I had relationship failures one after another. This was back in my early days when I was going through medical training and internship, residency, opening up my practice first few years. I just was really controlled by my emotions. I could keep them under check when I was doing my job as a doctor, which you have to do. But when I was in, home in my personal life, I would get angry at the drop of a dime. I would, I had a lot of anxiety. I had tremendous public speaking fear. I would have never agreed to do something like this. I would have been petrified to do something like this. So, and like I said, I had relationship failures one after another. So it was my personal life was a mess. And and no matter what I tried, and I tried all sorts of things for years, including therapy and stuff like that to somehow solve these emotional and stress problems I was having. Nothing really helped in a major way. So, but the other interesting thing is, as a doctor, you're taking care of patients, and you see the angry, stressed out patients, and you see what happens over time to your whole population. And you see that those folks have more health problems, they have more divorces, they have more drug addictions. So you're seeing this pattern, and you're realizing that you've got these same problems yourself as a young man. And I didn't want to end up like a lot of my older patients were after years and years and years of stress and anger and stuff like that. So it got me into personal development work, and I did that for a couple of years. And I finally cobbled together a bunch of stuff, insights from different programs, and came up with something that finally relieved my anger, relieved my anxiety, and put me on the right track for having, sustained relationships.
So, Mort, let's talk about this. What happens to somebody who holds on to a lot of anger and stress for a lifetime?
It's not pretty, and you don't see it right away, which is why it's so, kind of tricky, because it just does damage little by little, day by day. And then eventually you end up with, you age faster, you get more, heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, even can get cancer, can affect your immune system. So not to mention the fact your relationships take a toll with your partners, with your kids, with your friends, coworkers. It really impacts a lot of your life. And most people know that, they just don't know that they can do something about it. They kind of think like, well, it's just part of life. It's just something I have to put up with and just struggle with. And then most people, that's what they do. And that's what I did for a while until I just surprised the hell out of myself and had a major breakthrough in being able to get rid of these problems. So, yeah.
So is there any truth to um, the hypothesis or the theory that being angry all the time, being stressed out all the time takes years off of your life?
They say it's true. There's science. There's science. There's telomere research on genes that are affected. Putting the science aside, I think my own personal observations is it does. As a doctor taking care of patients over many, many years, I think the people who are angry and stressed out seem to age more and seem to be less healthy and less happy. That was my personal experience as a
Well,
doctor.
look at politicians. Look at like most presidents of the United States. The day they enter into office, all of them except the one named Trump seem to like look a certain way. And the day that they leave office, they seem to have aged like 1 or 2 decades, depending on how
Yeah,
long their tenure in office is. Trump's the
you can
only
really see
exception.
it.
He looks exactly the same as he did. It's just like stress doesn't bother this guy. He's like unbelievable in that respect. But everybody else seems like the weight of the world is on their shoulders and it visibly, physically ages them. So the
Yeah.
good news for them is they get into history books. The bad news is they die sooner than they should. Right?
And you can see it. You can definitely see it in the before and after pictures. And it's a high stress job. It's probably the highest stress job you can imagine.
Yep.
And it takes a toll. And the same thing's happening to us on a smaller scale because most people feel like, well, stress is just a burden I have to carry, something I have to slog through and just push through.
Mhm.
Sometimes people wear it as a badge of honor, that they're able to work and accomplish things and put up with all the stress and a lot of times, or they may even consider it a motivator. A lot of people think I got to have the stress or I wouldn't be successful or
Right.
productive, which is not really true, but in their minds they feel like they're kind of married to their stress and they can't get rid of it, which is not actually true. You can be extremely productive and have very little stress in your life, and a lot of people have done that to their surprise when they thought they would probably have less productivity, but actually they learn how to get rid of their stress and boom, it's like an explosion of productivity, much more than they ever imagined.
So one of my mentors back in the day said, you don't want to get rid of all stress. You want to get rid of distress,
Yes.
not eustress, because he says like stress is life. So the total absence of stress is the total absence of life. So can you make a distinction between distress and eustress?
I think it was the guy who invented the whole stress concept, Hans Selye, is responsible for that problem. That's how he defined stress. That it's anything that causes your body to react, whether it's good or bad, doesn't matter. But that's stress. And to me, like that's life. Everything in life is going to cause your body to respond and do whatever it does. But to me, when we use the word stress, we're really talking about distress. We're talking about
Yeah.
this kind of stuff that we don't want to have, that's burdensome to us, bothersome to us, damaging to us. When you and I and normal people use the word stress today, that's really what we're talking about. We don't say, I never had somebody as a doctor come into my office on a Monday morning and say, Doc, I got so excited at the football game on Sunday. Can you help me with that? It's not a problem for people to have good stress. It's only a problem when it's ruining their marriage or it's causing them to have problems on their job and perhaps lose their job, or cause them to come into a doctor's office with high blood pressure, some other health problem. That's the kind of thing when we're talking about stress. We always mean it as a problem that we don't want.
I got to tell you, I had a situation.
Mhm.
So I'm a man in the personal professional development field. I host podcasts. I'm a guest on podcasts. Between the two of them, I'm close to 2,000 appearances. I speak on stages all the time. That kind of stuff's fun to me. That's eustress for me, not de-stress.
Mhm.
But on Friday morning, 6 a.m., I'm getting up, getting ready to go to the gym, and I check my email, and I got an email that said, this is Amazon, and we have temporarily suspended all your accounts. If you think this was done in error, respond to this email. So I did. they wouldn't tell me why. They said suspicious activity on your payments. Suspicious activity on my payments. I tried to speak to somebody. They wouldn't speak to me. They said, no, you can't speak to this department. It's only by email. We can't even speak to them. We can just escalate. So they asked me for a bunch of stuff to verify my identity. I sent it to them. They canceled my account. And I got upset. I got angry. I called, thumped the table. And we went back and forth. There were 8 back and forths. They canceled my account twice, saying, you've got no recourse. I got angry. I went to the Canadian Human Rights Commission and I filed a complaint against Amazon. I went to LinkedIn and I tagged the president of Amazon, Andy Jassy, and the senior vice president in charge of their retail operations, Doug Harrington. I was mad. I could feel the tension in the back of my neck and in my back. I was thinking about it all the time. I don't want to be that way. Even when something like this happens, I want to handle it with a lot more class and grace. Mm-hmm. So, coach me, Mort.
All right.
What's the way for me to make sure this doesn't happen going forward?
You're very clear that you were angry, right?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
And now, stressed out. Angry and stressed out.
Okay. And anger is a subset of stress. So, it's one of the problems that we don't like to have, like you say. I'd rather like to react more calmly when these kind of things happen. But do you understand why you got angry?
Sure. I felt I was mistreated.
Okay. So it looked like the behavior of the Amazon folks was what was causing you to be angry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the view that most people have of emotions in general, not just anger, but most emotions. Our common sense tells us is whatever happens in the world that we're looking at that we don't like, or people treating us badly or whatever, then that causes us to have the emotion. It looks like a direct cause effect. One causes two. Amazon's bad behavior caused me to get angry.
That was my interpretation anyways, that they're...
Yeah, that's everybody. I mean, that's common sense. Because it's what we see. Those are the things we see. The problem is that all emotions are created with additional steps that are invisible. And this is what we're not teaching people. We're not teaching people how to correctly understand their emotions, because it's not just what Amazon did or what other people do. There's 2 steps in the middle that are happening inside us, inside of our brains. And you can't see what's going on in your brain. It's invisible. You can't feel it. You can't observe it. So it doesn't look like there's anything going on. but that's where the anger is actually coming from. So all emotions, what I discovered 40 years ago that set me free from all my emotional difficulties, was realizing that emotions are actually very simple. And the brain gives us filters to makes us look at the world in certain ways, that in 2 or 3 specific ways, that if you look at it from those ways, you're going to get the emotion that you get when you see things that way. And anger comes from 3 filters that our brain gives us. Okay. So this is why you got angry. Your brain told you whatever happened, somebody did something bad and wrong they shouldn't have done. Mm-hmm. Amazon did something they shouldn't have done. They shouldn't have just shut off your accounts, not give you any warning, not give you any opportunity to respond and explain your side of the situation, whatever they think you did or whatever. All right. Correct. Number 2, somebody was hurt or harmed or negatively impacted by the bad and wrong behavior.
Yes. So
you're obviously hurt and harmed. You were hurt because you felt disrespected, but also you can't use your account. So business-wise, you were affected negatively.
I was big time affected. In addition to buying from Amazon, I published 10 books on Amazon. So I lost access to all the books I'd published as the author and access to the royalty stream. So.
Yes. So the second thing your brain told you to how to see this event was that you were negatively hurt, harmed, or impacted. Sometimes we get angry when we look at somebody else who's negatively impacted. If somebody close to you gets negatively impacted by somebody's bad behavior, or even the planet, for example, if you think the planet's being harmed by somebody's bad behavior, any kind of negative impact is the second filter. And then the third filter is it's a filter of blame, but it's a very specific kind of blame. I call it unilateral blame.
Yes.
So you only focus on the bad behavior of the person who did the bad behavior. It's like you have horse blinders on, or your brain functions like you have horse blinders on, and you only see that person, what they did and didn't do. You don't see any other causes that might have been in the picture.
Well, in this case, in most cases, I get that because obviously there's other causes, my own behavior, whatever. But in this case, truly, I did nothing wrong. They just said, we saw suspicious activity on your credit card. I looked into it. There was none. I let them know that. They didn't take my word for it. I sent them a whole bunch of info demonstrating there was none. They wouldn't agree. They just said, oh, we don't agree. You're canceled. It was wild.
Okay. But so that all that happened. And the reason why you had anger was because your brain told you to look at it from they're doing bad and wrong things, multiple bad and wrong things.
Yeah, that's true.
Continue to do bad and wrong things as the thing unfolds. You're continuing to be negatively impacted by the whole thing. And you're looking at them as being primarily responsible or to blame. All right.
Correct.
You didn't do anything. Like you say, you didn't do anything to bring this on. You were just minding your own business, and boom, out of nowhere, this comes down on you. Okay.
It's like a guided missile aimed at Nicky Ballou's hopes and dreams.
You're just sitting in your bunker, 300 feet underground, just running your centrifuge, and all of a sudden this bomb comes on your head.
Well, not exactly. I was like the innocent person sitting in his villa.
Correct. You weren't up to no good. You were doing good things, actually.
No. I'm actually Iranian, by the way. So.
Oh, okay. But that's how emotions work. That's how anger works. All right. That's where it gets generated from. It gets generated not from the things that happen or the behaviors that happen. It's from how our brain tells us to look at it and think about it and understand it. And it's three. People should write those three things down because it'll give them the code for how their brain creates anger every time, no matter what the situation is. Even if you're standing in line and the line's moving too slow, or you're in traffic and it's moving too slow and you get angry, it's the same three filters. Somebody's doing something bad, wrong, somebody's negatively impacted, and somebody's unilaterally responsible or to blame. And when you get those three filters, your brain tells you to look at things that way and that's what's true. Okay. There's a second thing your brain does. It tells you that's the truth. Don't question it. Don't challenge it. Don't look outside of it. Accept it. And when you do, you will get the emotion that goes along with whatever filters your brain is feeding you. Now, what's interesting is when you know that that's how your brain's creating the anger, then you can actually start to investigate it and examine and say, well, how true are these three filters? What my brain is telling me to believe, should I really believe it? Or could there be more to the story? Or could my brain have misled me in any way or left important things out that would change the whole character of how I'm looking at the situation? And if you start to do that kind of work, which I started doing 40 years ago.
So let's look at this specifically in this case. How would I specifically do it in this case? Because I can see how this is true in most cases. And by the way, I finally got Amazon to restore my account. So the good news is that happened at the end of the day.
Yes.
But how would I do it in this case? Because honestly, I really didn't do anything wrong. This was some sort of foul up inside their process.
Yes. And does that happen in big companies?
It happens in everyday life, 100%.
Yeah. Yes. So the first thing your brain is telling you is they did something horribly bad, horribly wrong that they shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
There's the question now that you have to question that narrative. Okay. Is that really true? Did they really do something terribly, horribly wrong that they shouldn't have done? From your perspective, yes. Okay. But from their perspective, they're seeing activity on an account that looks suspicious to them. They're actually, in one way,
so they said.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
but you understand, I've had my credit card actually hacked twice over the last 5 years. Yeah. Each time that happened, my bank contacted me within minutes saying, hey, we noticed this. They shut the credit card down, and I communicate with Amazon and all my other vendors to change the credit card. So as soon as they said, we noticed this account without any further explanation, that's the first place I went. I said, oh, maybe that's right. Let me look into it. And I did.
But you're dealing with Amazon. Amazon is not your local bank. Amazon is a multinational company that has so many problems they have to deal with that they don't usually deal with them well at that level.
No, they don't.
You just got some bureaucrat following an algorithm that tells them what to do.
That's what happened. An algorithm made a mistake.
There's no humanity to it. There's no consideration of, who you are, or what you've done for Amazon. All that's, they don't have time to deal with that. Okay. So when you're dealing with a behemoth company like that, you're going to run into bureaucratic nightmares.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's just part of the lay of the land, So to have the expectation that Amazon's going to treat you like your local bank is your brain messing with you.
So my local bank, I'm a Canadian. Our local bank is a multinational bank called the Toronto Dominion Bank, which has offices not just in Canada, but in the United States. They're called TD.
Yeah.
And all across the globe. So they are also a behemoth, by the way, and they treat me a lot better than Amazon did.
They have local representatives that can interact with their customers one-on-one. Amazon really doesn't.
Yes.
And they're notorious for not having
refused. They say when it comes to this is our policy. And I'm like, this is an insane policy. You should let your people that are dealing with a potential fraud issue have a conversation with your fraud team. No, we won't do that. No explanation.
Yes, you are correct. You are correct. It is a bad policy on their part, but you're dealing with a company that's not set up to do things in the way that you and I think would be the best way to do them. I mean, they could.
That I agree with. 100%.
They could if the leadership, was committed to it, but usually they got other things on their mind that are more urgent for them to deal with. So the whole idea, your brain tells you they did something bad, wrong, horrible, they shouldn't have done, unconscionable, blah, 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 blah. The truth is they just did what Amazon does routinely. And they're not of a mind to fix it like we would like them to do. Okay. But that's life. You're going to run into situations like that where you're going to have people who don't have the right policies, don't have the right structure. They're going to disappoint their customers like they did you. They're going to treat you badly. And, it's like expecting you're never going to get in a traffic jam. It's going to happen. And yes, somebody may have messed up and they had an accident or something like that, but those things happen, So, more philosophic, your brain wants you to look at it in a way that's going to make you angry. But then you can use other parts of your brain to go, oh, wait a second. I see what happened. And maybe in some way they were trying to protect them or trying to protect me. So no more fraud is, happens on the account, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And then you go to the second one, you were negatively impacted. Well, is that true?
Well, I can replace everything I buy from them, but my books that I publish with them, if they don't give me access to them, that's going to have a negative impact on my business. Massive one, no, but a moderate one for sure.
Yeah, but look what happened. They restored your account.
They did.
You weren't negatively impacted. You weren't negatively impacted.
At the end of the day, I wasn't.
Yeah, but your brain told you in the beginning you were definitely going to be in a big way, and it was going to be really bad. But and it wasn't going to, and you weren't going to be able to get out of it.
The average person would not have fought back after the second time they were told they have no recourse. You can't ever get your account back. I'm not the average person.
Yeah,
I'm a warrior.
And we're not talking about being. We're not talking here about being average. Yeah. We're talking here about being exceptional. And if you want to deal with a situation like that with calmness, you have to be able to take. I
don't want to get angry. That's the thing. I don't like the physical feeling of tension in my neck, in my head. I don't like that when I woke up at 3 a.m. to go to the bathroom, I thought about this. What I should have done is thought about falling asleep again.
Well, but the point is, you can't stop. The activity of your brain is automatic. Yeah. It's going to automatically give you those filters. You're going to get triggered when stuff like this happens. Yeah. You can't right now, without a lot of work, you can't stop that from happening. You're going to get angry when these kind of situations happen. The only thing you can do is recover as fast as you can and realize, okay, now I know where my anger is coming from. My brain's telling me to look at it, that somebody did something bad, wrong they shouldn't have done. Somebody was hurt and harmed, negatively impacted, and somebody was unilaterally responsible for blame. And my brain's telling me to believe that. And now I've got to go see if those things are true or not. And have this and you have to, on your own, have this kind of a conversation with yourself. We're having here where, okay, how can I look at this differently? How can I look at this more broadly? When I remember the Dalai Lama, who's pretty good at this stuff, was asked one day by Desmond Tutu, what do you do, Dalai Lama, when you get stuck with something, problem that you can't solve right away or you can't figure out what to do. I mean,
Like the
what is your
Communist
move?
Chinese Party wanting him dead, like the stuff like that, right?
Stuff like that. Yeah. So what do you do when you get stuck? And he said, well, the first thing I do is I try to look at the situation from at least 7 different perspectives.
Wow.
Now that's exceptional. I mean, normal people don't do that. We're stuck with one, the one our brain gives us.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of times we don't ask ourselves, well, how else could I look at this? And the Dalai Lama goes further and says, well, I got to look at it 7 different ways, not just 2 or 3. I got to go to 7. And when you do that, you're going to see a lot of stuff that your brain didn't let you see, initially when it was making you angry. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's you can do this for any kind of anger. It's always the same 3 filters. I don't care where you live, what country you live in, what language you speak, anywhere on Earth. If you're angry, and even if you're on Mars, if you're angry, it's because your brain gave you these 3 filters to look at whatever went down through and to believe are true. And a lot of times they're not completely true. And the brain leaves a lot of stuff out. It's a filtering machine, so it's constantly leaving stuff out. It's trying to figure out, it can't give you everything that's in the world. It can't present that to you. It's just too much data. So it tries to figure out over time, what are the things I need to show him? What do I need to make him think or see or perceive? And they're leaving stuff out because that's what brains do. And so there's always the likelihood that you'll find stuff if you start digging in and asking those kinds of questions. Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? And I started doing this 40 years ago on my own little anger episodes that I would have every day. And I started investigating them. And lo and behold, almost every time I was able to finally see that my brain left something really important out that made the whole situation look different. And I no longer felt angry about it. And when you do that over and over and over and over, you start to realize that your brain is almost always tricking you whenever you have strong negative emotions. And most people are not being taught that. They're being taught the opposite. They're being taught when you have a strong emotion, you should believe you're in touch with the truth.
There's a lot of truth to what you say. And I can see that. I mean, if I look back at this situation right now, I go, yeah, this is a behemoth acting like a behemoth. Policy's shitty, but that's life.
Yep. And you got to keep plugging away and doing what you need to do to get your
and I got to keep plugging away.
And you did. And you did.
And I did. And, the lesson I'd give to the average person is don't quit when one of these people in the organization gives you a shitty answer. Keep fighting and find ways to put pressure on them because behemoths respond to pressure. And one of the things I did was I went to the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. I filed a complaint. And that's serious for them. They're going to have to respond to that. And I went to Andy Jassy, the CEO's LinkedIn page. I found something a post he'd made, and I tagged him and I wrote my story and I told him that I've gone to the Human Rights Tribunal and I want this resolved. And I did the same with another senior person there. Yeah. And I contacted a PR person within. So I went at it from a lot of different angles. And that was helpful, obviously. Yeah. I don't know which one of these was the reason, but I think the fact that I chose not to give in and I chose to fight was good. The only part of it that I wanted to do differently was letting it affect me.
And you didn't. You could have done all those things. You could have taken all those steps
without letting it affect me.
You could have let go of the anger quickly after it happened,
and still taken all those steps.
And still taken all those steps and gotten the same result. And you didn't.
And that would have been a lot better for me. I wouldn't have had stress in the back of my neck. I wouldn't have stayed awake at night for a little bit.
Yeah. And every time you do that successfully, every time you do this process we're talking about, understand the anger where it's coming from and from your brain, and understand there's probably some falsehoods in what your brain is telling you. Try to figure out what they are. Once you realize, then you release the anger when you see it differently. Okay. Oh, this is just a behemoth company with bad policies doing what they do. And one individual is not going to change their policies, but I can get a better result for myself. Once you let go of the anger and then get the good result, and you do that over and over and over again, you start to get really good at it and really fast at it over time. So now for me,
I like this. I really
In the
like this.
beginning, when I
Good.
started doing this 40 years ago, it took me a while to finally get to, deep truths about it. But after doing it over and over and over again, I'm like really lickety split at it right now. I mean, it's hard for me if I do get angry now, which is rare. It's hard for me to stay angry for more than 5 or 10 minutes because I immediately know where it's coming from. I immediately know the questions
Yeah.
to ask, how to look at it, how to dig in, get beneath what my brain is telling me and figure out what's true and what's not true. And it's like gone. I never go to bed angry anymore. I used to. My wife and I don't have arguments anymore. We never did actually because I got rid of my anger. I got rid of my anger before I met her, which was fortunate. But most people don't know that it's possible to live that way. You don't have to have angry. I mean, you have to have angry reactions automatically, but you don't have to be stuck with them. You can make them go
So,
away very quickly.
so Mort,
Uh,
I have another podcast for men called the Sovereign Man Podcast.
mhm.
And I'd like you to come on that show to talk about this from the perspective of a married man or a man in a significant relationship and how he can handle that. Would you
Be
would
happy
you
to.
would you do that? And
Oh, I'd love
secondly,
to. Love to.
I also have meetings with the men of my Sovereign Man movement. We have a circle called the Sovereign Circle, and we bring in speakers from time to time to talk about topics. And I would like you to come and speak to them if you wouldn't mind over Zoom. That would be great.
Happy to do that. Happy to do
All
that.
right.
I think
So,
I think there are a lot of personal development programs around for women and not as many for men. So I'm always happy, to share whatever I've learned with men's groups and men's organizations because I think
great.
we need it. I think
Yeah, we
particularly
badly need it.
particularly in relationships, with we could
Yeah.
use some personal development there.
So I'll be in touch with you offline to get something sorted out. Um, so have you written a book about this, Mort?
Written 26 books so far, and I've got 3 more that I'm releasing on how to cure road rage.
Okay. So, Dr. Mort Orman, I'm assuming these are all on Amazon.
Most of them are on Amazon. Yes, not all of them. Most of them are on Amazon.
All right. So, is there a particular one you want to talk about to have my listener pick up?
Sure. If they want to get in terms of anger, what we're talking about today, the best book that I've written on that, and the best book that they could probably ever get on that, is called Dr. Orman's Life-Changing Anger Cure. I just released it in April of 2024. Okay. No, wait a minute. No, April of 2025. No, I forget. On April. Recent April.
A recent April. Oh, recent April.
When you write a lot of books, it's hard to remember which is which. But anyhow, it's called Dr. Orman's Life-Changing Anger Cure, and it goes in more depth into understanding this whole process. And if you understand anger, the book is totally about anger, but if you understand anger, it's the same for anxiety, it's the same for guilt, it's the same for worry, it's the same for sadness. It's just different filters your brain is giving you, and it's usually usually 3 filters for each emotion. If you know the filters, you've got the emotion figured out, and now you can really take charge of it instead of the way most of us live life is our emotions run us. They drag us around, they make us do stuff, they make us feel ways, and cause problems and stuff like that because we're not in control. And this form, when you understand the formula your brain is using, it puts you in control. And by the way, if you really want to understand anger, go to the experts, the people who know how to make human beings angry, and that would be the media.
Oh,
Okay?
they're amazing at it, aren't they?
Yes, and you know why? Because
It's their
they
business
understand
model.
how the brain works. Whenever they want to make us angry, they feed us 3 stories. Somebody did something bad and wrong they shouldn't have done. They hurt and harmed or negatively impacted somebody, and they were 100% responsible or to blame. Nobody else, nothing else was involved. That's the truth. Believe what we're telling you. We're the media. We would never lie to you. We would never leave anything out. Trust us. And that's how they make you angry. Well, your brain does exactly the same thing. Every time you get angry, your brain is acting like the media and giving you
The
those
media
stories.
actually knows what they're doing. It's quite
And
sinister.
they know that that's how anger gets created in human beings.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Like I myself, I'm from Iran. I grew up in Iran, and I saw propaganda, state media. It's one of the reasons that I noticed it here because, over here it was not quite as extreme as it was back in Iran until just a few years ago. And I was shocked. I was shocked because I remember, I'll just give you an example, Donald Trump, okay? And this is not a political discussion, but I remember Trump before he got into politics. And the media loved this guy. He was great copy. Oh my God, the Donald. And like he was on The View. They were like joking with him. They were playing with him. They were like, oh, he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Then he gets into politics and like, okay, we need to flip the script on this guy. He's a racist. He's this. He's a bad guy. He's a sexist. He's a misogynist. He's trying to start World War III. I'm like, hello, are you the same people that were yucking it up with him like 2 months ago? Are you those people that are doing all this? And it was shocking to me how it happened. And I thought to myself, okay, you left Iran, but you didn't leave human nature when you left Iran behind you. And human nature is still what it is. And the media business model is rile the people up and make money. Rile the people up and make money. And I got to tell you, I don't want to ever be a part of the business model that depends on making people miserable to make money.
Yeah. And here's I think the most important thing. We've started to wake up to the fact that the media is full of propaganda and it lies to us all the time. And it doesn't matter. Actually, it doesn't matter whether it's right-leaning or left-leaning media.
No, they're both full of shit.
Giving you a spin. They're all giving you narratives to make you feel, excited or upset or whatever. So we've started to become aware as a society that the media can't be trusted. What they tell us can't be trusted. You have to dig deeper. You have to get multiple sides.
2020 is when all that started. We started to wake up.
Yeah. But what we haven't woken up yet to is that whenever we're emotional, our brains are doing the same thing. They're tricking us. They're giving us narratives. They're leaving a lot of stuff out. We haven't yet gotten that societal consciousness. And that's one of the things that I want to help, kind of spearhead, that we start recognizing that our brains, when we get emotional, our brains are functioning just like the media, and they can't be trusted. And
your brain's like the media. That's the title of this episode, Mort. Your brain's like the media. It can't be trusted.
Yep, that's the takeaway.
That's a good takeaway. All right. So, Mort, I got to say I really enjoyed this. And give us the name of that book that you want everybody to buy one more time.
It's called Dr. Orman's Life-Changing Anger Cure. If you just go to Amazon and put in Life-Changing Anger Cure, it'll come up.
All right. So Dr. Orman's Life-Changing Anger Cure on Amazon. Okay, great. We like to end every episode by asking you, our guest expert, for your top 3 expert action steps. These are your 3 best pieces of life and success advice in bullet point, truth quickly form that you want my listener to implement in their life right away. What say you?
All right. The first one would be embrace being wrong. Now you got to know that's coming. You got to know that's coming from a doctor. I was trained. I went to boot camp for 7 years to never be wrong about anything. So that was one of the biggest hurdles I had to overcome, was realizing that being wrong is the secret to happiness. Because our brains make us wrong a lot of the time. Hopefully not when we're practicing medicine, but outside of that, or other disciplines. So don't be afraid of being wrong. Actually turn around and embrace being wrong, because by being wrong, you'll end up being right more often, because you'll eventually figure out how your brain has misled you, and you'll get deeper and deeper insights. The second thing is, don't assume that if you've had a problem for many, many years, or particularly an emotional problem or a stress problem, that's always going to be that way for you. You can absolutely have huge breakthroughs if you just get the right insights, or you hang around the right people who figured out how to beat those problems in life. And I would say the third thing I would say is around relationships. The most important thing I learned about relationships is we think backwards about a lot of ways, about a lot of things, but relationships, we think the relationships are designed to succeed. You find the right person, you get the right chemistry, right emotions, the relationship's going to work out. Absolutely the wrong perspective. Human relationships are designed to fail. And you have to understand that going into them. and you have to understand how you're going to destroy them, how your brain is going to cause you to destroy them. And both parties need to do this, because both people will be practicing very destructive relationship habits, just because that's how they got trained when they were younger. So you got to understand going in that relationships are very fragile, and you got to understand how you're going to destroy them so you can stop yourself from doing that. And if each person in the relationship takes that on as their commitment to study their own relationship destroying tendencies and manage them, then the relationship has a better chance of succeeding.
Man, I like that. These are really 3 excellent expert action steps. Mort, you're a good man. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was a lot of fun. You taught me a few things about myself. You know, that little piece of coaching you gave me, it was a little intense for me, but I'm glad I learned something. And I think the next time something like this happens, I'll be able to get the anger under control a lot faster, which is.
And feel free to hit me up. I'd be happy to, if you had some anger you're stuck with, I'm happy to coach you through it and get rid of it quick.
God bless you. I will do that. We're going to be good friends. I'm going to get you on the other podcast once we get off camera. And I'm just looking forward to a long and fruitful friendship and association with you, man. Thank you so much for your time. God bless you.
All right. Thanks.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. To find out more about today's amazing guest, the one and only Dr. Mort Orman, go to the show notes at thethoughtleaderrevolution.com or wherever you happen to listen to this episode, be it iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Rumble, YouTube, or what have you. Until next time, goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.